Welcome students. In today's class, we are going to look upon two different platform as a services companies related to developing the applications that can be used as a web application, software application that can be installed on computers, or the third type, that is the applications that can be installed on the mobile phones. The first one is basically the integration of Force.com into the Google App Engine. Now, we already have studied some concepts related to the Force.com. Force.com is a platform as a service which has been provided or given by the Salesforce.com. On the other hand, Google has its own platform as a service, which we call it to be a Google App Engine. Both of them, both the platforms were having its own advantages. At that particular time, the Force.com was keeping all its contents, all the technologies proprietary with respect to their own developers. But at the same time, Google App was getting more popular and more popular among the developers because of its ease of use and because of its ease of developing the applications. During that time, the Google App Engine was mostly supporting the Python, right? And that Python was, for the developers, Python was very much easy in order to develop the applications. Now, so what the Force.com and the Google, what they had made an agreement. What they said was they're going to say that they come to a conclusion and they decided to merge together and provide the services that have been given by the Force.com platform onto the Google's App Engine. Force.com applications, the platform was very much rich in its services with respect to its scalability, with respect to its workflows. And those services have been integrated on the Google App Engine. And then they came to one more type of a platform and they named it to be a Force.com for Google App Engine. So Force.com for Google App Engine means it is one particular platform as a service. The platform as a service wherein the services of the Force.com were integrated into the Google App Engine. Did you understood now what actually Force.com for Google App Engine means? It is not the two different things. Force.com for Google App Engine is one thing wherein one particular platform where the services of Force.com was integrated or was made available onto the Google App Engine. So by doing this, what has happened? It has enabled the developers, right, on the App Engine to develop the applications using the services that have been hosted on the Force.com. So what type of applications they can develop? They can develop the applications related to the web apps, which can be hosted on the web browsers, right? The business applications, the Force.com was much popular in the business applications and the applications which were involved in the social networking. So all those access, in order to develop those particular applications, there were rich libraries, or we can say it to be a type of services and the workflow engines. Those were made available on the Google App Engine. Is that understood, students? What we mean by here Force.com for Google App Engine? So whatever the products were developed, it could be a web application, it could be a desktop application or a mobile device integrated applications. Those applications, when they were used by the end users or the clients have got the flexibility in accessing the data from both the servers that is being hosted at the Force.com and as well as from the data that has been hosted on the Google App Engine. So it was advantageous for the developers also, and at the same time, it was advantageous for the end users or the clients who were using the applications. The only reason of integration of this Force.com onto the Google App Engine is the Force.com was having a rich interfaces, rich services, or the rich workflows, or the tools that were required in order to develop the cloud-related applications. Whereas on the other side, the Google App Engine, it was very handy, it was very easy for the developer to develop the applications using the Python. Right? So then they made a decision to integrate both the services platforms to make it as a single platform. They called it as Force.com for Google App Engine. Now, what they offer as part of this are these things. The creation of the Python libraries. Now, since the Python libraries were only applicable to the Google App Engine, now the developers at the Google App Engine, they try to create certain libraries, right? That can read and write the data which were hosted on the Force.com. Since the services have been taken from the Force.com, so the App Engine should have those particular libraries present. Libraries in the sense you can think of the set of predefined functions, right? Predefined functionalities which will enable the developer to read and write the data on the Force.com applications. The web APIs, which we usually call it to be, we can call it to be a Force.com's APIs. So the Python libraries were developed because the App Engine was mostly on the Python, and they were allowing developers to create the web applications or the desktop applications using the Python programming language. So they created a set of libraries or the set of predefined or a built-in functionalities, right? Those Python libraries were allowing the developers to read and write the data from the Force.com's web APIs. And the Python was capable of, the libraries were such a way that they, using that particular libraries, the developer can directly access the database. That database might be present on the Force.com. Or the workflow mechanism. Workflow mechanism means how the integration of this particular code has to be done, or whenever the client uses any application, so what and all data has to be taken care. The syncing of the data synchronization, whether that particular data is accessible at the Force.com or whether that particular data is present on the Google App Engine's data server. So that particular workflow was being defined by the, again, Python libraries. So Python libraries or the Python played a very important role in getting or connecting the client application with the databases. Databases might be present in two different servers, one either on the Force or the second one either on the Google App Engines. So this Force.com for Google App Engine, it was when it was integrated for the end users or the developers here, certain documentation was required. A type of a guide which can help them or help a particular developer to develop the softwares. So these all are included in that particular platform. The first one was getting started guide. So this getting started guide is a particular documentation that has been provided that tells the developers how to use the Force.com for Google App Engine, how you can install these particular services as part of development activities. Secondly, the Python libraries. What are the Python libraries developed and what is the usage of those particular libraries? And along with that particular libraries, they were given with certain codes, kind of a example codes, you can say. In order to perform so and so activity, someone has to write a code in this particular format. So that particular example codes were given. Since there will be a code that will be developed by the developer, then that code has to be validated. It has to be unit tested, right? To do the unit testing, then there was again testing code written by the Python libraries. That was also made available. And all the frequently asked questions related to how to use this Force.com for the Google App Engine. All the documentation was included along with the applications. So now basically what is Force.com for Google App Engine? It is a platform as a service, wherein the integration of Force.com platform was made available, or that particular platform was integrated onto the Google's App Engine. The developers got an opportunity to take the rich capabilities of the Force.com platform, use them and develop their own applications using the capabilities of Google App Engine. So it is basically the integration of two different platforms. When it has happened, it made the softwares or the web applications which were developed. Those applications were used by the end users or the clients. And now the client has got a better softwares wherein the data can be placed in both of the servers. Advantages of both the platforms have been taken care. Is this understood, students, what we mean by Force.com for Google App Engine? The next one, okay, this Google Games we are going to look upon as part of your students' presentation. Now, we'll move to the next one, that is Microsoft Azure. Already in some of the classes, we have looked upon the Microsoft Azure as the services, software as a services, but here we are trying to focus it as part of our platform as a service. As a platform as a services, Microsoft Azure was allowing the developers to use these things. One by one, we will try to look upon what they are. Okay, the first one is the features of those. Basically, what I said, the Microsoft Azure is a platform as a services that was given by the Microsoft for the developers. Now, whatever concept we are looking here, you need to think as a developer. As a developer, how the Microsoft Azure was used and what type of the services being developed, or what type of the web applications being developed by the developers. So since it is a platform as a services, we know that platform as a services means it contains certain operating system and all the tools or the services which are required to develop the software. In order to develop the software, what we require as a developer, a code editor is required, a compiler is required, runtime environment is required, and that particular code has to be tested. So the environment for the testing is required. So all these things are integrated together to make one type of a platform that will allow the developer to create or develop the softwares. Those softwares again can be of different things, web applications, and the softwares that can be either installed on the computers or on the mobile applications. Right? So this Microsoft Azure was giving a capability to the all the type of developers. It could be an individual developer or it could be a group of developers. Suppose if as an individual, I want to develop one particular application using the Microsoft Azure, then I can approach the Microsoft Azure. I can pay the money, whatever, how long ever I want to use it. Or if it is a group of developers, then that particular group of developers can also use the Microsoft Azure, wherein they can distribute themselves what type of functionalities will be developed by whom and all, then integrate it together. So end to end, the develop can be calculated by the multiple developers in a collaborative way. Correct? Then what type of the softwares can be developed? It can be the new softwares or the new applications entirely, or it can be the existing, there might be certain existing applications which they want to enhance it. So this particular, the fourth point here, it indicates that suppose if someone is in need of certain type of an application that has to be hosted on the cloud, so we can call it to be a new application, entirely new application that has to be hosted on the cloud. Secondly is that already there might be certain softwares or the applications available which were not on the cloud. Those can be made available on the cloud by putting or by making them designing it once again so that it can be best fitted in the cloud based. So both type of the applications can be designed using the Microsoft Azure, right? And since we are talking about the Microsoft, if someone wants to develop the applications through the Microsoft, then we should have the services related to the Visual Studios and .NET Framework. Yes or no, students? If someone wants to develop the applications related to the Microsoft, then the .NET Framework and the Visual Studios are a must. So these were allowed by the developers to use it. That means what? Microsoft Visual Studio and Microsoft .NET Framework. Developer need not to install these things on their computers. These will be available on the cloud. Developer can make use of these things and then develop the applications. Right? So whatever the applications they design, those can be installed on multiple types of operating systems. It can be, we usually call it to be an what? Interoperable environment. In any type of the operating system, we can make use of, because most of them are going to be a cloud-based. So cloud-based means the browser supportability. So if a browser supports that one, then it can be used on any type of operating system machines. And it was supporting Microsoft Azure supports a different type of protocols. It could be a marking language protocols, or it could be a representations like HTTP, REST, SOAP, or XML. Any type of programming languages or any type of protocols can be used in order to develop the applications using Azure. So this is these are some of the features of Microsoft Azure, wherein what type of software can be developed, what are the core things a developer can use it here, that is Visual Studio and a Microsoft .NET Framework. Who can develop? It can be individual or it can be a group of developers. What they get an operating system and all the services related to developing a code, that is developing an web applications, including editors, compilers, runtime environments, and the testing environments. Is this understood, students? The features of Microsoft Azure. As this particular Microsoft Azure is being used as a platform, then they were more focused upon developing the cloud applications. So they need to provide some services. They called it to be a live services. These live services were hosted on the Microsoft database or the servers, and which were made available to the end users. We will talk about these live services. Some of them we have already looked upon as CRMs and SharePoints. Since here we are more discussing upon the platform, then we require something as a database, right? So Microsoft has its own SQL services, that is Microsoft SQL services. Again, these Microsoft SQL services, developer will get access to these Microsoft SQL services through the web application itself. That means developer need not to install any of the servers or SQL applications on their machines. It will be made available through the web itself as part of the platform as a service. So what they get all the capabilities or all the services that a SQL server provides, right? That too through the cloud infrastructure. Since it is cloud infrastructure, the database, obviously we know that the SQL server of Microsoft is a relational database. That relational database now has an additional capability called as a distributed database. Distributed data means what? The database can be accessed in a distributed way through the internet or through the network. So that if suppose if there is a multiple developers trying to get connected to the database, so the relational database works in the form of distributed network. And these SQL services, what type of services they can get? All the relational queries, as the database is a relational database, relational DBMS, all type of search techniques, and the data synchronizations. Data synchronization means, now suppose if the applications have been developed and if those applications are given to the end users, right? End user may use those applications on their mobile phones, or they may use it on their computers. In either of the cases, data should be synchronized with the servers which have been hosted on the cloud. So this facility was also made available using the SQL service, right? Since it is a database, what type of data it can store? It can store all three different types of data. structured data, semi-structured data, or it can even store the unstructured data. I think students, you are aware about what different types of data are here. That is structured, semi-structured, and unstructured. And later, I think in 2013 or 14, this particular services, that is Microsoft SQL services, got renamed as Azure SQL Database. So this is another type of a services that was made available to the end users. That is, end users here are the developers who were using the platforms of Azure to develop the applications. These two things we have already studied, students, that is Microsoft SharePoint services and Dynamics, that is Microsoft Dynamics CRM services, right? The SharePoint and Dynamics CRM, that is customer relationship management services, can be used by the end users, but how they are being designed? They have been designed on top of the Azure itself, on top of Azure platform. These services have been defined or developed. Then the next concept is the one which is very, very important. That is, what is the design of Azure? The design of Azure goes into 4 different layers. Bottommost is the layer 0. On top of that, we have layer 1. And on top of that, we have layer 2, that is layer 2, and then layer 3. So just try to think in a, read it in a inverted top down. So at the bottom level, we get an hardware. What actually this layer 0 means? This layer 0, directly it is capable of communicating with the hardwares. Now, in this particular diagram, I'm just trying to give you some picture about what actually we mean by communicating directly with the hardwares. Whenever we write applications, right? Now, suppose if you think of softwares which are already installed on a computer, when they are installed on the computer, it has to communicate with the hardware, right? That is a traditional approach that is being followed in the in-house architecture. In the in-house architecture, the softwares would have been directly installed on the computers, and they have a capability of directly communicating with the hardware devices. But when it comes to the cloud computing environment, Azure was created in different layers, such a way that at a bottommost layer, which directly tries to communicate with the hardware, they call it to be a global foundational or foundation services. GFS means global foundational services or global foundation services. Both are true. Both can be accepted. GFS is actually something very much similar to in a normal architecture, which we call it as an HAL, hardware abstraction layer. Hardware abstraction layer, which tries to differentiate between the kernel and the hardwares. Have you come across with these type of diagrams in any of the subjects, students, in your previous semester? Applications, and below the applications you have a kernel, and that kernel will directly communicate with the hardwares. If you remember or recall in your first semester computer fundamentals, where you had one particular diagram, the representation of a Unix operating system, where probably you might have come across with similar type of an diagram there, where the kernel was directly communicating with the hardware. But in case of this particular Microsoft Azure, they have a type of a layer or a stage where the layer 0, that is a hardware abstraction layer, that will directly communicate with the hardware. So this is the base where the abstraction layer is getting interface or directly connected with the hardware. Now, on top of that, now there is a layer 1. So this layer 1 is nothing but the operating system of Azure. Since there is a platform existing, which we call it as a Microsoft Azure, that means there should be some operating system. That operating system, they call it as actually Red Dog. When it was started working, then Microsoft named it to be a Red Dog. Okay. Since it was a platform as a services which was offered through over the network, so it has the capability of networking and managing the their own servers. That was Windows Server 2008 machines. And all those operating systems were hosted on the cloud itself. Since it is an operating system, a platform, what it consists of? It consists of a storage to store the data. Since it was a platform means it requires all the development environment. Development environment means set of tools required to write the code, to runtime, to compile the code, runtime environment, and unit testing. All those were taken care in the development as a development environment. And it was also, since it was a virtually hosted on the computers, means one hardware and multiple instances. That means there exists a virtualization, right? So it was also considered, it was also having a virtual machines. And since the applications are going to be developed, since they are being developed, they have to be deployed. If they want to go for a deployment, then a type of a system which can manage the deployment. So end-to-end support for starting from creating the application up to deployment. All these were part of the Azure operating system. And the beauty of this Azure operating system is like you deploy it on one particular machine, right? And then duplicate it on multiple systems on the cloud itself. If someone wants to have the Microsoft Azure on a multiple computers, then multiple times they no need to deploy it. They can just deploy it on a one computer, one machine, and replicate of that particular instance on the different machines. So all these were part of its layer 1, which was above the layer 0. Are you following, students? On top of layer 1, we have a layer 2, which is the third one actually, right? So where the core services have been deployed. Core services means on top of this layer 4, we are going to have the, sorry, this is layer 3, students. Let me just make a change. This is not layer 4, layer 3. Okay. Now, on top of this particular layer 2, we are going to have one layer 4, which is the topmost, which is accessible to the end users, where we are going to host all our applications, right? Those applications can be developed by the Microsoft or even sometime by the third parties. The applications will be hosted on the outer layer. Then there should be services related to that. Those services will be placed in this particular layer 2. All the core services. For example, if you consider an CRM applications, in order to execute or work the CRM applications, there should exist certain core services. Now, let me try to put this particular in a diagrammatic form. Just a second, students. Let me open up one more shared window so that I can explain it to you better way. Are you able to see this MS Paint? Is Paint visible to you? Please acknowledge.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, on the bottom layer, we have one particular layer. We called it as layer 0. Okay. Then on top of that, we have one more layer. That is layer 1. Okay. Then next, one second, layer 1. Fine. Then on top of that, we have one more layer. Let's call it as let me use different text color. This is layer 2. And on the top, we have one more layer. This is fourth one. So name of the fourth layer is layer 3. Layer 3. Now, what are the main capabilities or functionalities of this layer? The first one, one which directly communicates with the hardware. Okay, hardware abstraction layer, which directly communicates with the hardware over the cloud. Over the cloud means over the web applications. The second one is layer 1. So the layer 1 means where the Azure operating system stays. That is next one, layer 2. Layer 2 is core services. And layer 4 means the applications. For an example, application, you can consider one particular example here. Consider SharePoint. SharePoint as one application. So this SharePoint is an application that will be deployed, that will come as the layer 3. On layer 3, the SharePoint application is going to be deployed, right, as an application. For an end user, the end user will see this as SharePoint application on the layer 3, right? Now, if this application has to be worked, SharePoint, then the core libraries or core services of SharePoint should exist. Those core services exist as part of its layer 2. It is present in the layer 2 of Azure. Then, in order to execute or in order to work these services, there should be an operating system. That is the Azure's layer 1, where it has got its operating system. Then, since these applications internally they have to communicate with the hardware, then that will take place by the layer 0, that is HAL, hardware abstraction. So at a bottom part, when we get a layer 0, this is directly communicating with the hardware. And on the layer 3, which is the topmost, we can think of this is something user is capable of using it, or user is capable of viewing it through the layer 3 on the top layer. So these are the 4 different parts of Microsoft Azure. Did you get some understanding on this Microsoft Azure's different layers? How this design of Microsoft Azure was done? Fine. So these are the these two concepts that where I was planning to cover it in today's class. The first one is force.com for Google App Engine, and second one is Microsoft Azure. Is this understood, students?
Yes, sir.
Did you actually understood what actually I meant by in the previous concept, that was force.com for Google App Engine? See, there were 2 different applications or the platforms. One is, you can call it to be force.com. This is one of the platform as a services by the Salesforce. Then the second one was from the Google, and that we call it as App Engine. Right now, force.com was having its own advantage with respect to its rich services. App Engine was having its own advantage with respect to developing those particular some type of services. Then these 2 companies merged together and they did not merge. They gave an agreement wherein the applications of force.com platform can be made available or used on the App Engine. Then they called one more, or a type of a platform, they called it as force.com for Google App Engine, wherein the developer will get all the functionalities of force.com, and that can be used on the App Engine. The main programming code for that was the Python. So there were certain libraries, built-in libraries were developed. So those libraries help the developer to sync the data between the force.com servers and on the App Engine servers. And such developed applications have got a better advantage for the end users. End users can access the data both from both the servers, which were placed on different platforms.